Well, another official visit weekend is on tap for Pitt. It'll all get started today. The recruits arriving, staying here until Saturday. You saw what last weekend produced. 14 recruits came in. 4 of them already committed. 5 left. 5 committed by the time they left. That was 9 out of the 14 guys were committed. What's this weekend bringing? Can they get another 5 commitments out of it? How many guys are they bringing in? Who are they bringing in? Who's likely to commit? Who would the Pitt staff like to land? We got a lot of recruiting info for you to get ready for a big official visit weekend number 2 here. Oh, wait, I didn't do it long enough. Hold on. Big official visit weekend number 2 here on the Morning Pitt, the Thursday edition on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, I didn't mean for there to be balloons there, but as I held up the number 2, I was like, oh, I could send off some balloons about official visit weekend number 2 because, hey, who doesn't like balloons, right? Look at that. Sometimes they even mix it up. They get the different colors going at different times. It's really fun. Again, if you only listen to the audio version of this podcast, you are missing out on the balloons and the confetti. We get confetti that falls sometimes. There's the confetti. That's always lots of fun. We get a big thumbs up. There's always the thumbs up, which was one of the first ones that I was like, why is that happening? It doesn't make any sense. We're not going to overuse them now. Maybe we'll bring them in later. And if Pitt loses a few commitments, maybe we'll bring the rain shower. Oh, you're only going to give me 1 thumbs down. I didn't get the rain shower. Bummer. Anyway, we got a lot of recruiting to talk today on the Thursday edition of the Morning Pitt, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. All the info, of course, is right there at the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's where you get all of your Pitt sports info, football, basketball, recruiting. You can find it all right there. And message boards to talk with other Pitt fans. And a lot of the stuff we post about the visitors, a lot of the info and breaking news and anything like that, we're going to put it on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com first. So if you're a member of the Panther-Lair.com message boards, then you're going to pick up on that info right quick. And if you're not, you're going to have to wait a little bit. But we'd like it if you were part of that conversation. So check out the site, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And then our YouTube page here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is the place to get all of your Pitt video content, these daily Morning Pitt videos, Monday through Friday. Our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night. We did it last night with Jim Hammett. That was a lot of fun. And then anything else. Yesterday we had the interview with Mike Stacchiotti, Pitt's strength and conditioning coach. Talked to him about adapting the strength and conditioning program, getting it in line with Cade Bell's offense. That was really interesting stuff. Hopefully you got a chance to check that out. And if you didn't, go watch it. I think you'll be very interested in what Mike Stacchiotti has to say. So check that out. It's all right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Like this video and subscribe, and you will not miss any of it. All right, official visitors. As of this recording, we're looking at 7 guys coming on a visit, so a little bit smaller than what last week's group was. Last week they had 14 recruits coming in. Like I say, 4 of them were already committed, so 10 uncommitted targets. This week's group's got 7 total recruits that we've confirmed, again, as of this taping. There are always going to be changes. There was last week. When we taped the official visit preview episode last week, we thought there were going to be 13. By the end of the weekend, we had found out that there was a 14th guy, and he ended up committing, Julian Anderson. So it was an important one to find out about. But that's what we've got right now, 7 guys. Only one of them is currently committed to Pitt. That's Shep Turk, the offensive lineman from Thomas Jefferson. The other 6 guys coming in are currently uncommitted. But unlike last week, where I think there were a few guys that you looked at and you said, well, they don't have any other official visits scheduled, or they've already said Pitt is their favorite school. Wow, these guys are probably candidates to commit. And Pitt did end up landing a number of those guys. You don't see quite as many obvious options here, but that doesn't mean there aren't good prospects. There are really good prospects, high targets, guys who are pretty high on the recruiting board for the Pitt staff, and they're coming in this weekend. So let's talk about who's coming here. And really this weekend, like I said, there's 6 uncommitted recruits coming in, and it's highlighted by 3 defensive backs. 2 safeties and a corner, depending on how they project. And each guy is pretty unique. Each guy is pretty different. And probably the guy at the top of the list, I would think when I look at this, and I think there's a couple. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I'm going to say Josh Gurrier. It might be Gurrier. It's Guerrier. He's from Florida. He's from the Orlando area. He's a 5'11", 170-pound defensive back prospect. He's I think he's projected as a safety in Pitt's defensive scheme, and he's probably one of the top defensive backs on the board. I think he's a priority target for the Pitt staff. I think they're really high on him. They're really excited about how he would fit in with their defense, and obviously the defense is a big part of the appeal, as well as that connection with Corey Sanders, who recruits more on the Gulf Coast, but I think also is involved with safety prospects. And that's what Josh Gurrier appears to be. He's got offers from Iowa, Iowa State, Wisconsin, Boston College, Cincinnati, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisville, Tennessee, in addition to Pitt when you talk about power conference offers. And again, we talked about this last week. These are the schools that if you're Pitt, that you want to be competing against. If you're Pitt, these are the schools you want to be beating in recruiting battles. Sure, you'd love for every kid in your recruiting class to pick Pitt over Michigan State or Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and Texas, but that's not typically how it tends to go. That's what you'd like to see, but what you really need to see is winning recruiting battles against the teams that you're going to play against. If you get the players that those other teams want, that should give you a better chance of beating those other teams, right? If you win the recruiting battles against those teams that you're facing on a regular basis. And no, Pitt doesn't play Iowa, Iowa State, Wisconsin, Illinois, or Kentucky. They do play Boston College. They play Cincinnati this year. They play Louisville. And they're in the same conference, obviously, with the Cardinals and the Eagles. But that's generally the level of schools. That's the tier. You know what I mean? They might not play Iowa or Iowa State, but they're going to play Virginia and Virginia Tech. They might not play Wisconsin and Kentucky, but at some point they're going to play Carolina and NC State. Schools in that general tier. It's not the top tier of college football. It's probably that next level, that great middle. There's basically three tiers, I would say. There's the elite at the very top, there's the very bad at the very bottom, and then there's the giant middle there, of which Pitt is a part, and of which the majority of the power conference programs are a part. And so you want to beat those other teams in the middle tier, and that's who they're competing with for this kid. Josh Gurrier took an official visit to Iowa State last week. He's going to go to Pitt this weekend, and then he'll be at South Florida and Iowa to finish out the month of June. And I think just a top target for Pitt, just really a primary target. They've not landed any defensive backs yet in this recruiting class. I think this is the weekend when they're looking to do it. And I should have saved that part for after I talked about all three of the DBs. But Josh Gurrier is definitely, and again, I am sure I am getting his name wrong, and I apologize to you, sir. But I think he's definitely high on that target list, especially as a safety. Another safety coming in, Cole Woodson. 6 foot 190. He's from Virginia. He's got offers from Duke, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, West Virginia. Took an official visit to Duke last week. He'll go to Virginia after he takes his official visit to Pitt. Pitt this weekend, Virginia next weekend. Here again, you're right in that tier that you want to be in. You're right in that tier that you want to win in. And Cole Woodson, I think, another safety prospect. And like I say, we'll talk about corners and safeties. I think last year they basically signed 3 corners. But there are guys with flexibility. You know what I mean? Like a guy like Eric Hallett could have played free safety, field safety, I guess the Pitt calls it, or cornerback. There's flexibility there. We've seen guys move between corner and safety. MJ Devonshire, I think, moved between corner and safety. Paris Ford moved between corner and safety. Rashad Battle moved between corner and safety. DeMar Hamlin moved between corner and safety. There's flexibility in those positions, and I think they like to recruit athletes who have, their own sort of athletic flexibility, that they could play corner, they could line up at that field safety spot, because they want the field safety to be able to run like a corner anyway, right? You want to be faster, and you want to have that speed on the back end. And so, Cole Woodson, I think they're recruiting him as a safety, but he could potentially play either one of those spots. And again, another really good target. I think all 3 of these defensive backs are really good. And then there's Sean Lee, a cornerback from Harrisburg, 6'1", 180. I think he's getting recruited as a cornerback by Pitt. He's got power conference offers from Iowa State and NC State. Took an official visit to Iowa State last weekend. He's going to go to Pitt this weekend, and then he'll go to UConn after that. And Sean Lee is a little bit interesting, not the former Upper St. Clair guy. Sean, Shawn, Sean Lee. But he's very interesting because I don't think he actually has a Pitt offer yet. I don't think he's got a scholarship offer from Pitt just quite yet. I think they want to see him in person, check out size and things like that. But, I mean, Sean Lee is a stud for Harrisburg. I mean, like absolute stud, top performer. You talk about a guy who does everything for Harrisburg. You look at his stats. He threw for 2,200 yards and 26 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He also ran for 1,400 yards and 19 touchdowns. He averaged more than almost 9 yards per carry and more than 100 yards per game. In terms of all-purpose yards last year, he had 1,500. That doesn't count the passing yards. In terms of total yards, which does include the passing yards, he was almost 4,000, 3,700 yards. He accounted for 265.8 yards per game. And we're just talking about his offensive exploits. He's getting recruited to play defense at Pitt. Wouldn't be surprised if he's the kind of guy that you sell on playing both ways. But according to his Max Preps page, he had 47 tackles last year. I'm just trying to see if he had what he had interception-wise. He had 4 interceptions for 72 yards. I mean, he's a monster athlete. He's really good. Scored 19 touchdowns last year. Just checking out his breakdown here. Yeah, they were all rushing touchdowns, but he obviously accounted for more because he had the passing touchdowns as well. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I would expect Sean Lee to come in on his visit this weekend and get a scholarship offer from Pitt, and then you see where it goes from there. Like I say, he took an official visit to Iowa State already. He's got one lined up to UConn. Limited offer sheet with just Iowa State and NC State of the power conference schools. He's got a bunch of others that are not power conference. Let me just bring up that list at his profile in front of me. Akron, Buffalo, UConn, Kent State. Oh, he has NC State. NC State was the other one, excuse me, and Old Dominion. But Penn State obviously looking at him a lot. Pitt looking at him a lot. I'm sure he's on the radar for some power conference schools. But I think if they could offer Sean Lee and get him this year, this weekend, I think it would be huge. It would be a big gig because he looks like one of the best athletes in the state. He's got the production to back that up. So when you look at Gurrier, Lee, and Woodson, I mean, I think you're looking at a really good crop of defensive backs visiting Pitt this weekend. It would be a statement for Pitt to go out and land 1, 2, or 3 of those guys this weekend. All the recruits who are coming in, other than Shep Turk, who's already committed to Pitt, they all have more official visits scheduled. So if you're able to get commitments from any of these guys and convince them not to take their additional official visits, then you're going to have a big win. If you could get one of these 3 or 2 of these 3 or all 3 of these defensive backs and really make a statement, it would make a statement about that Pitt still has that kind of cachet with players in certain positions. Everything's bad when you're coming off a 3-9 season. Everything is rough and all of that. That's natural. You're not going to have a good off season when you go 3-9. But little wins like this, and I don't think they would be little wins if you pulled in these guys, but little wins like this where you can, grab 2 guys, 3 guys, priority players at positions where you've got a reputation for being really good, can show that you still got a little bit of that juice. Now, that doesn't mean if all 3 of these guys go on and take the rest of their official visits, that doesn't mean Pitt doesn't have that juice with those positions, but you can make a real statement here with Woodson, Lee, and Gurrier. I think it would be huge to get any combination of those 3 guys. The other 3 official visitors, there's Jordan Fields. He's an offensive line prospect. I thought I had his page open because I was drawing a blank on where he was from. From Texas. That's right. He's coming in from Texas, North Shore High School in Houston. He's got scholarship offers from Houston, from Kansas, Maryland. He took an official visit to Toledo last week. He's going to go to Kansas the week after. He's a 6'6", 265-pound offensive tackle. Pitt has I think just the one commitment from offensive, or did they got another one? I always draw a blank on some of these things. No, he just has the one commitment from Shep Turk of among offensive linemen so far, and Turk could probably be an interior lineman. I think Fields looks more like a tackle, and so trying to fill in that spot, start filling in some of these O-line spots. See if we can get him off of taking that official visit to Kansas next weekend. Bryson Williams is a linebacker from Michigan. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. I think rivals might list him as like an athlete. I think he could play a bunch of positions. He strikes me as the type who would be, a safety in some defenses and could play as a an outside linebacker, potentially the star linebacker position in Pitt's defense. Bryson Williams has offers from Illinois, Kansas, Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, Purdue, and West Virginia. Took an official visit to Kansas last week, and is looking at visiting Michigan State next week after he goes to Pitt. Williams, an interesting guy. He's been recruited by Archie Collins. Ryan Manilak picking up the recruitment here with Pitt identifying him as a linebacker prospect. They got a commitment from the linebacker last week. They got a commitment from Justin Thompson on the official visit last week. If they could get another one, I don't know. They might be kind of filling up. What did they? Did they just sign I think they signed 2 linebackers last year, right? Jeremiah Marcelin and Cameron Lindsey. And Davin Bruton. So they signed 3 linebackers last year. They signed 3 the year before with Bass, Biles, and Lovelace. So I could potentially see them just standing pat with 2 linebackers if that's what they end up getting. But it might depend partially on who else they're able to get. But if they're able, if they can get, Bryson Williams this weekend to go with Justin Thompson last weekend, I think they'll be in pretty good shape at linebacker. I don't know if they'll totally call it quits. They've still got more linebacker visits lined up, but I think they'd be in pretty good shape. And then the other one, Quante Gillians. He's a defensive end from Rochester, so coming in from upstate New York, 6'4", 240 pounds. Took an official visit to Boston College at the end of May, went to Syracuse last week, and he'll go to Michigan State the week after Pitt. He's sort of announced the top 5 or the 5 schools he's talking to the most is Pitt, Boston College, Michigan State, Minnesota, and Syracuse. He's got Georgia Tech and West Virginia offers as well. Pitt got Julian Anderson as a commitment last week, out of last weekend's official visits. Gillians has a little bit more size. He's already at 240 pounds, whereas Anderson's sitting there around 215 or so, quite a bit skinnier. I have to look at Gillian's film, but I don't know if he scored 13 touchdowns like Anderson did. That was a little bit unique, I think, when you look at Julian Anderson, what he is able to do on the field athletically. But I think getting Gillians to go with Anderson as another defensive lineman in this class, a defensive end, with Trevor Summers as a defensive tackle, also in the class, you're at a point now when Pitt's got 11 commitments, you're starting to fill in some positions. And you're starting to get to a point where you say, well, how many are they going to take at this position? The coaches have to say, how many are we really going to take at this spot? We might need to change our approach here. And we've seen that. We've seen them cancel some visits. We've seen them cancel visits on guys, guys who are planning to come in for an official visit. And the Pitt coaches say, you know what, man, actually, we're kind of full at your spot right now. We're going to have to hold off on taking that visit. There's strategy in the game. There's finesse in the game. There's a push and a pull. You've got to be. You got to make decisions sometimes, and sometimes you have to find a balance in how you approach this guy versus that guy, and what you do in different situations, recruiting. And this midpoint of the official visits is when I think you see a lot of these decisions getting made. We're like, oh, you got a couple of commitments last weekend. Kind of want to hold a spot for this guy who's out there. And so you sort of pause some other guys and you move this piece over there and you move this piece over there and you move this here and do this and do that. You're juggling. You know what I mean? You're juggling a lot of items all at once, and you're trying to keep them all in the air as long as you need to keep them in the air. And so there's nuance to recruiting, probably more than a lot of us on the outside realize, but Pitt coaches are trying to hit that balance right now. And we'll see what they do. If they get another linebacker, if they get another defensive end, I think they could probably use a few more defensive ends, just how much and tackles, quite frankly, just how much they need to restock the defensive line. But if they get if they get a couple of these corners, if they get another linebacker, if they get a couple more D linemen, You're gonna have they're gonna have to make the call on a few positions while they work on some other things. So we'll see what this weekend brings. We'll see if 7 ends up being the final number, if these 7 end up being the final list, and we'll see if any other guys end up jumping onto the list before the end of the weekend. Either way, we'll have all the coverage right there at Panther-Lair.com. So like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and check out the website Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com for all your Pitt sports coverage. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I appreciate it. It's almost the end of the week, folks. We'll have our mailbag edition tomorrow. It's always fun. I always look forward to those. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for watching the videos all week. And we will catch up with you tomorrow for the Morning Pitt mailbag right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.